Hey up everybody, my name's Joshua Morrison, director of Johnny Moz's Lessons in Confidence. Today I want to talk a little bit about dogs. Now I remember being about 7 or 8 years old, right? And I was in the waiting room at the hospital, right? And I was with my mum and I can't remember what it was I needed to get done. I was going to see the dentist, right? And I remember I really wanted a dog around this time, right? And I saw this woman who was sat there with a kid, and she had a German Shepherd that was sat there all like that, right? And I looked at it and I thought, God, I wish I were a dog, right? And that thought lingered with me sort of after the appointment and probably for the next few days, right? And I was just thinking like, God, it would be so great to be a dog. Think about it, you know, you get to chase bulls all day, you get to just, you know, get fed for your entire life, you don't have to do anything, you don't have to go to school. Right, you just sit there being a dog and you get taken to the park, and I liked the park as a kid, so you know that seemed like the ultimate life, really. So I didn't think anything could really beat that. So I wanted to be a dog, right? And I even thought about what kind of dog I wanted to be, because we just got on the internet at this time. One of the first things I ever used the internet for was to figure out which dog breed was the most intelligent, and turned out it was the Border Collie. So I thought, right, well, there were a couple others that are equally intelligent, but Border Collies look the part, you know. They look interesting, they look hard. So I thought, I'll be a Border Collie rather than a fucking Chihuahua or whatever, right? I'll be a Border Collie. That seems like a pretty fun life. You know, you get to herd sheep, you get to have that. So you got a purpose, you know. It's not like most dogs that just sit in the corner rolling balls towards you and then get taken to the park once a day, you know. This is proper career dog lifestyle, right? And I didn't want to be a guide dog because I thought that's too much responsibility. I don't want to have to deal with, you know, causing a blind man's death or whatever. I thought, nah, sod that. I'll be a Border Collie, right? In my next life, I vividly believed in reincarnation at the time. I was weirdly Buddhist for an 8-year-old raised in England with no external sort of, you know, religious authority being pressed over me. I kind of gravitated straight for Buddhism and the idea of the reincarnation. So I thought I'd like to, because I knew vaguely the idea of if you're good in this life, then you'll be something better in the next life. And if you're bad in this life, then you'll be something worse in the next life. And I thought, well, a dog is slightly worse than a human. So if I just go around and I'm a bit of an arsehole for the rest of my life, then that's sorted. I'll be a dog in the next life. Perfect. So when I was at school, I used to chase people with sticks. I used to get into fights, all that kind of thing for the next few weeks while I tried to be a dog. I wasn't like, you know, barking or anything like that. I knew I was still a human. I didn't think I was a dog or anything like that. I thought if I work hard in this life to be an arsehole, I'll be, but a small arsehole, not a big arsehole, not a vivid, grand, genocidal fucking mentalist, right? I mean just a bit of a knob, right? I'll be a bit of a knob in this life and I'll be a dog in the next life. And eventually I kind of just forgot about the idea, and I never really wanted to be a dog after that. I never thought about it after that, which is weird because the whole reason I wanted to be a dog was because I didn't want to go to school. Which essentially, you could translate that to an adult version, which is, I want to be a dog so I don't have to have responsibilities. I want to be a dog so I don't have to go to work. I want to be a dog so that I don't have to book my own dentist appointment. I want to be a dog so that I don't have to commute on the bus and go all the way like to my workplace and then work there for all this time and then come all the way back and all the way back there. I want to be a dog so I don't have to have a mobile phone and an email and social media, right? I thought that would be a good time to you know, think about being a dog, right? Surely, more likely, it would be more likely that I would want to be a dog in the adult world compared to the child world. So why is it that child me wanted that escape, and yet adult me, despite having so much more pressure and feeling so much more overwhelmed by the world in which he lives in, that the adult version of me doesn't want to reincarnate as a dog? The next version of me, say if reincarnation did exist, I'd be fine as a slightly wealthy individual, you know? I'll come back as an Arab prince and I'll try and, you know, cause a bit of change within the system from within, you know, something like that. But I thought, it's just a bit odd, isn't it? The fact that I've gone from this point where I wanted to not necessarily escape in a sort of sad sense. I wasn't sad by any sort of stretch of the imagination. I just thought Wouldn't it be cool to be a dog? Wouldn't it be better to be a dog than this? It's not like I vividly hated the world I was in. I was fairly content with it, but I thought being a dog would be better. You know, so it's not like it came back down to anything really miserable or anything like that. I just liked the idea of being a dog. Because I look at dogs and dogs always look happy. They're always like, you know, they're loving it. They're having a great old time, right? I thought that'd be fantastic. I'll be a dog, right? It'd be brilliant, you know? So I've been looking at dogs lately, not in the sort of sense of like, oh, I wish I was a dog now, right? But I just look at dogs and I think, God, there's some really interesting ones knocking about, right? Because there's some really good dogs. There's some really, really good dogs. And now whenever I sort of find an interesting one, I saw one that had one blue eye and one brown eye, and it was a husky. That was a good one. There's a dog that I know that goes to the pub and drinks Guinness and eats pork scratchings. There's a dog that I remember, there's that kind of dog that's got the really long nose, but it's kind of like joined at the head, so it's like got this giant arch that comes off its face. That's pretty neat. The fact that we have Chihuahuas and Great Danes and pugs, all three of them, even though pugs shouldn't exist, right? We should breed them out because it's disgusting the fact that they exist there with all their sort of thing. Because the whole reason that they're bred that way is so that they can look cute, right? Is it fucking cute to not be able to breathe properly? You hear them panting all fucking day, all fucking night, right? Because they're suffering, because we've bred them like that, because we as people are kind of fucked in the head, right? We're not a great species, right? Maybe that's why I wanted to be a dog, because I was old enough to be able to look around and say, I don't like the church. I was old enough to sort, not like, you know, I was particularly intelligent as an 8-year-old or anything like that, or like I had any kind of authority. I could have become a Christian after that, but the point is that I looked at it at the age of 8 and I thought, that's fucked. And I remain in agreement with 8-year-old me that is fucked, right? And, you know, there's so many miserable things going on in the human world. There's genocides and sort of shit that I didn't know about when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I was thinking about like, oh, I don't like the royal family and they're getting married and they're doing all these things, they're boring. It's so boring, I don't want to be involved with this, right? Stuff like that, or how, you know, CITV would stop broadcasting at 7 p.m, you know, that kind of thing. That's what I wanted to escape, right? Rather than, you know, the actual systematic issues that are all around us and that, you know, get caused by various companies and politicians and all that sort of stuff, right? There's all a big topic that we can't really get into, right? But to close this out, why did I make this video? Why did I make a video talking about how I wanted to be a dog when I was 8, right? I think because we can all relate to the experience of wanting to escape, right, in various forms, and we all find our own ways of trying to get out of here, right? And it will be different for everyone. Some of us dream about living on a desert island and, you know, listening to a few of our favourite records. That's why desert island discs surely exist, because someone thought, wouldn't it be great to live on a desert island? And they extrapolated that into this sort of fun little game. It's like, ooh, if you were stuck on an island, what vinyl would you take with you, right? And to answer that, I'd probably take, I don't know, like something like 69 Love Songs. Not that I haven't listened to it, right? But I know that that album is like 4 hours long. So it's going to take up more of my time. Right? In fact, actually, I would take an album that I fucking hate. I'd take like Ed Sheeran or something, right? Because eventually I would come around to it after having to force myself to listen to it. If it was the only thing I had, I wouldn't take like, you know, my favourite album. That'd be stupid, right? Because then I'm going to get sick of it. I'm going to hate my favourite album. I'd rather take an album I already hate, because the only way I can go from there is up. So I'll take a shit album. But anyway, the point is that people want to escape and they find all different ways of figuring out escape, you know? So, you know, I think to close this out, it's just important to recognise that where you are at the moment, whatever the struggles are that are in your life right now, are not forever. They're not permanent. Things will change. Things will eventually get easier, right? It's all, you know, a perspective sort of game, essentially. And sometimes you're dealing with small problems, but they feel very, very large because you are mentally and psychologically are quite weak, right, in that state of mind, in that moment. And so those small problems seem bigger than they actually are. And sometimes you'll feel a lot more powerful, right, and you can take on even bigger issues. And those bigger issues don't seem as big. So, yeah, that's pretty much the video. Thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you think. When you were a kid, what kind of weird thing did you want to be? right? I remember there was a kid in my school, we had this like, what do you want to be when you're a grown up sort of day, right? And everyone said they wanted to be in the army. And I said I wanted to be an architect. And I remember this one kid, he said he wanted to be an underwear model. And I thought he meant underwater model, which to me, I just thought that's a statue under the sea like that. And I don't think that this is really what you had in mind. So anyway, leave your comments below about what you wanted to be when you were a child, how you wanted to escape, and do you think that there's any validity to the dream of some kind of salvation? So yeah, thank you very much for watching, take care, and bye bye.